All right. And I think now I have permission to move to the 1500, your specialty. So we have the Simmons today. And, in the first heat, we had Kerr and Jakob Ingebrigtsen, both guys who have in the past proven they know how to win the 1500 because one has an Olympic gold and one has a world championship gold. We also had American Cole Hocker in there. And the three of them looked, amazing. It was kind of, I guess, what you'd expect in the sense of it was what Jakob normally does in these things. He takes the lead. He took it a little bit later than he normally does. He normally takes it between like 200 and 300. This time he had to run like most of that turn between 300 and 400 on the outside, but then he got in the lead, just ran 332 from the front. Kerr was right behind him, Hocker right behind him. And then Brian Cohen of Kenya, Stefan Nielsen of the Netherlands, and Pietro Risi of Italy, your final qualifier, 333.03. So, that was the heat. And then the second heat, for anyone that missed it, you had Nuguse and Hobbs Kessler of the USA going 1-2. Nuguse told Kessler beforehand, hey, man, just want to let you know, like, I'm going to the front. I'm not messing around like I did last time. So if you want to get on.
Did he actually?
Yeah.
Wow.
I told him. And Kessler was like, great. Yeah, that's what I'd like to do. So,
well, the result is we've got 3 Americans in the Olympic 1500 meter final for the first time since 1968. So, and I think, a medal is going to be very tough because I think there are 2 guys everyone thinks is very hard to beat. But I would not be shocked if one of them takes on at least some form of hard work on Tuesday night.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
What do you think, Matthew? Like when you analyze this race, the public at large, and we put polls on Let's Run, and we've seen some Twitter polls, and even the betting mods, they have Jakob as a pretty, not gigantic favorite, but about 60% maybe to win this race. Jonathan Galt and I do not have that. When we analyzed this race, we thought Josh Kerr was the favorite. And, I think it's a 2-person race. I think I would probably edge Kerr, I guess, because, someone's got to lead and it's hard to lead these things. But who do you view as the favorite between those two? And then we can talk about the medal leader.
Yeah. So, kind of like with the Lyles thing, I felt very confident about Kerr going into, 2 weeks ago. And I remember before pre-classic, I was like hanging around David Ribich or something. And, Ribich was teammates with Kerr. And we were trying to pretend like, who's the favorite going into pre. And everyone made me feel like I was taking crazy pills because who else was in that? Craig Nowak, Sinclair's boyfriend, was in the car ride, me, and then maybe someone else outside of David. And I was like the only one being like, Kerr's the favorite. Everyone's like, no. And I'm like, what? I'm like, don't get me wrong. Like, obviously Jakob has, his resume speaks for itself, but like at the time, like Jakob hadn't raced, going into pre for almost a year. The last time they raced, Kerr won. Kerr set world record. He won world indoors. It's like, whether you think Jakob is going to win or not, I'm like, he's got to be the favorite. So I felt no reason, even with Jakob running unbelievably at Monaco, I felt no reason that Kerr should fall out of that favorite spot. And when we're talking favorite here, we're talking like small favorite, but still a favorite nonetheless. But kind of like the Lyles thing, I felt very confident with Lyles when he was actually an underdog to the Jamaican guy. I felt like Kerr was an underdog, and I was like, this is great value. Like, I don't know, people are just keep doubting. And then I had heard from someone or somewhere that like Kerr kind of was banged up. And then that's when I started kind of having some doubts. Oh, where from Jonathan?
In John's preview, like he briefly mentioned that he was going to race the Portland Track Festival, but he was a little banged up. And I was like, what does that mean, John? You're burying this.
Yeah.
And John said that Danny didn't even mention it the first time he talked to him about it. He said, oh, you guys were going to do Portland. What does that mean? John still thinks it's a super minor thing, but I got a little nervous like you when I heard that.
Minor, of course, Danny Mackey's coach is not going to tell us exactly like, what I mean? It's weeks before, even a month before, like, and this is how it always goes, right? After the championships, people are going to be like, well, this is actually what happened. And it's like, okay. Yes. But like, you have to put on that like tough, persona, like nothing big, all good. I just think that even if it was something where like he was forced to miss a couple weeks, most of the work has been put in for sure. It's more of like you lose a little bit more of a mental edge than physical at this point. He seems like he's been pretty healthy all year. He had a very healthy, consistent indoor season, and then obviously looked unbelievable however long ago pre-classic was. So the thing is like, we really won't know until probably after, until he could probably give us a little bit more insight into like what happened. But yeah, that, anytime someone doesn't race or pulls out of a race, before a major championship, of course, that's a little nerve wracking as someone who's backing up a certain athlete. So I'm kind of going through that Noah Lyles thing where I'm like, shoot, like I felt really good about Kerr. Anyways, moving on from that, watching today's race, I remember I definitely told my wife, and I don't know if I told some other like friends of mine before the race. I think I told one of my other friends last night. I was very positive that Jakob was going to run a very hard race during the semi. Last year, what he did was he flip-flopped it, where he ran it pretty hard in the prelim, and then he actually sat in, if you guys remember, and like ran like one of the most tactical 15s of his whole career in that semi. And even I was like, I've never seen him like, he looked great. He he showed it, he could actually kick, but it wasn't as hard of a race, and I don't think it took as much out. So I felt like, believe it or not, I felt like he was pretty happy that Kerr was in his race in some way. This is just me like thinking out like what he could possibly think of, because now he can go run, which he did, a very hard 3:32 with a 60-second opening quarter, with also having the top guys like Kerr and Cole Hocker, and then, obviously whoever finished 4th and 5th, and those guys, they're going to all have to like come back 48 hours later and have that in his legs. So I think he actually preferred like having these guys and dragging their balls around for a hard, 1100 meters. I was also surprised that I thought he was going to take it around 200, like how he always does, I was surprised he waited 400 in, but nonetheless, it was a hard race. Like, I thought Cole looked really, really good. The best, which is really hard to say. I think he looked the best of the Americans, even though Nuguse just sold at 3:31. And Hobbs ran a very nice tactical race as well. I would say Cole's probably the number one hopeful for Americans in medaling. And Cole also, in a weird way, is like, if this race is like 3:29 and 3:30, Cole could like not just medal. I mean, Cole could definitely win. I think looking at their faces, like Ingebrigtsen, like Kerr looked the worst of the three in that first heat. But at the same time, like, there was plenty of times throughout my career where people were like, man, you look like you didn't try, but I knew I was really trying. But like, the way my form was and my facial expressions and, looks can be deceiving. And so I think Ingebrigtsen has that a little bit about himself as well, where like we've seen him like, lose races where he's not breaking form and he looks fine. He just can't go any faster. So we really don't know on a scale of 1 to 10 what that was. Kerr looked like he was working a little bit more, but Cole looked really good as well. And so I would say, coming away just from looks, Ingebrigtsen looked the best, Cole looked the second best, and Kerr actually looked like the worst of the three. How that pans out, obviously in 48 hours, we'll see. But yeah, I think those are the three favorites in my eyes, even though they ran 3:31 and Nuguse sold it in the second round. But I think those are the three medal threats right now I would have going into the final.
Yeah, talk a little bit about, Jakob and Kerr ran 3:30-3. But is that a much harder race but they only went 60 at the first lap? Whereas Nuguse hit the 3:31, but he's like going from the gun. So
yeah, I would say it was a harder race for sure.
What the impact in their legs, how that'll play. And I think you're right. Like, Jakob wants to make sure Kerr had the same experience as him, so he sort of dictated that. But yeah, talk a little bit about the difference between one race, which is actually faster than the other, but you're saying that was actually harder. So
yeah, for sure the 3:31 was a lot more even. Which would favor, I think, most people when you have to change gears, like, the way they did. I think that just takes you a little bit more out of it. Like, they also closed harder too, like obviously a lot harder. That middle 800 was like 150 flat, like from 60 to 250. So they're 250 at 1200. Right? Is that, or 250? Was that wrong? 252. In the first heat, sorry.
252.4 is the split. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was around 250. It was, they're all those races today were really hard, and I think they're going to affect everyone pretty equally. But if I had to make a guess, I would think that that 3:32 is probably harder on paper, but at the end of the day, Cole got a nice free ride. Hobbs had a nice ride as well. Nuguse was leading it, so I don't know how much more that's going to take out of him for doing it. But clearly, I think, we've realized that that's the best way Yared competes well, is when he's like controlling it and leading it. which would be really interesting to see like how Dathan and him, construct his game plan for the final, because, who knows, like Ingebrigtsen might not go to the lead right away. And so maybe Nuguse like wants to take the first quarter, and at some point, Jakob is going to go around, whether it's at 200 or 400 or 600 or whatever. And so maybe like for Nuguse, he wants to get it going a little bit early on. When Yard's in these tactical races and in boxes, I feel like he kind of, gets himself in a little bit more trouble than when he's out in front and it's a more honest race. So
the interesting thing you were talking about Hocker, he's been so impressive to me at the trials of this meet, because if you listen to him talk after the race, he's saying that was a 3:30 race of the trials, but it felt like it was like 3:35, and I was taking it. And today, he's like, it was 3:32, but I just felt so smooth and so in control the whole way. And that to me is why I think he's such a threat here. He is the best chance to upset one of the big two, is because he's got what Jake Whiteman and Josh Kerr had at the last two Worlds, where he can't just be in contention at 3:30 or 3:29 pace, but he might be able to kick off of it. And I guess he hasn't gone 3:29 yet. But if he pulls the upset, do you see it playing out that he's just right on their shoulders and then can kind of move by? Or do you think it's like, I don't know if you listen to Nick Willis's breakdown of the race, do you think it's like that when he suggested Kerr and Ingebrigtsen are just going to be, basically killing each other, and they're going to take so much out of each other that Hocker comes by? What do you think is the recipe for a Hocker victory?
I don't know if I agree with the Nick Willis take, because I think that those two are so good that even if they're beating each other up, one of those two is going to hold on. You know what I mean? And how fast are you really closing off a 3:28, 3:29, 3:28, 3:29 race? I just think that those two are so good that you're going to have to like position yourself. And why would he do the Nick Willis strategy anyways? He's talking about 332 feeling like a jog. Like, go 320, you know what I mean? You're ready. He's talking about how strong he is. Like, go with those guys. And I just feel like, those two are just so good that maybe one of those guys, like, and it's not even like they fade. Like, it's just like one of those guys are like going to be able to maintain and one isn't, it's not like they're going to be coming backwards. So I don't know if I agree with like sitting back, let them beat each other up. And then like, they're both so, especially Ingebrigtsen, they're so good at running within themselves that I don't see either one of them really like putting themselves in trouble with like 200 or 300 to go. I think they're going to have something that last 100. So I don't know if anyone's going to be coming from the depths, or coming in from like a chase pack if those two have broken off and really like go by both of them. But
I loved your analysis of Ingebrigtsen wanting to tire Kerr out for the finals, because Ingebrigtsen is basically unbeatable at the 5,000, so he's stronger than all these guys. But the question I have for you is, if you were coaching Jakob, what would you tell him to do? Because I think when he loses, people are like, oh, he's stupid, he tried to lead the whole thing, but he's not a kicker, so what other option does he have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's why guys like Kerr, when they come around, who are so strong, like have an 8 flat 2 mile PR and like, won world indoors in the 3K, and then obviously have the acceleration and the speed that he does. It's such a hard way to like beat a person like that. Whereas it's easier coming from the speed side and just like work on your strength, because they got to get rid of you. But yeah, obviously the number one, I think the thing you say is, look, like if you're Jakob's coach or you're talking to his like team, you're just like, look, we know Kerr's banged up. We know he's not in 327 shape because he had to miss a little training. Let's go run 327. No one else can run 327. I think that's what you got to do. I think you have him run it from the gun and he just runs 327, 327, like low, and the first round was probably a joke for him. He had a day rest. And then today, whatever day you guys are over there, I'm over here, I don't know what days of the week it is. That race was probably not taking as much out of him as everyone else. Even if like Kerr could beat him in the final, like Jakob's going to recover quicker, right? Because he's just stronger than everyone else. So I think you just tell him like, we got to run 327 flat. And that's probably the best way you're going to do it. And how to do it. Like, he does really well when he's like squeezing it. So he can't let any of those like laps lag like he did in, I guess it was Budapest last year. Or Eugene, one of the laps, like he went out, it was like 56 or something. And then he went like 58 or 57. He needs to like, get around at 200 and make sure that the first lap is at least 57 and then go to work. you know, 57, 56, 55, and then have like a 38, 39 last 300, you know, but I don't know, man. Like I kind of want to think that like if Kerr's not on it, I feel like Cole could like nab silver. I could see like Ingebrigtsen 1, Cole 2nd, maybe Kerr falls off of that. Even though I have Kerr winning now, I'm like all over these like different scenarios. I just like, I don't know, man. Like it's just hard for me to know like what Kerr, like I wish Kerr had raced going into this, you know, if I didn't know he was hurt, then I'm just thinking like, yeah, it's Kerr by a landslide. But if Kerr's like banged up, then I definitely think that like that opens a door for Cole to not only get second, but potentially win too. But I don't know if like, and the thing with Cole is I would feel better and say that Cole is a lock to medal if he had a PR that was under 330. Obviously, you know, we all agree that he could run under 330, but because he hasn't, just has me more hesitant on really having him win that race, because I really think that race is going to be significantly under 330.
Well, Matt, you're setting yourself up perfectly for the media because you're picking everybody to win. So you understand how it works. You gotta.
I've only said 3 guys. I've only said
Yeah,
three
no,
guys.
I'm saying it's good.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just saying, we'll see how it works. Like then we'll afterwards we'll clip something and make ourselves look like geniuses. But so if you're Kerr, I mean, if you're Kerr the strategy, you just sit on Jakob and try to outkick him. It's that easy. Like when. And I guess each race it's different. Is there a backup strategy for these guys? Or how are these guys approaching the race generally? I mean, I think everyone sort of knows to some extent how it's going to play out, but then maybe, you know, I don't know, Yara messes it up because he wants to be up front too. And, you know, like if you're Kerr's coach, what do you tell them? You're Danny.
I mean, like, I think for anyone, whether you're talking to Cole, Yard, or Kerr, or any of the other like 9 guys we haven't mentioned, like, yeah, if you want to beat Ingebrigtsen, you got to go with him. You know, like you're not like, let's sit in the mid pack and like, you know, let's wait for some carnage here. Like this field is so good that at least 1 or 2, potentially 3 guys are going to go with it. And they're going to be like, they're going to stick with it. Like, they're not going to be like dying off of it, you know? And so, yeah, if you're Kerr, I mean, you know, Kerr has already beaten Ingebrigtsen the last 2 times, so he knows how to beat him. And both times he was like up in the front in contention, or at least right off of, you know, Jakob's shoulder. So I don't see why you changing any game plans now when what you've done, you know, in the past has worked. So I think, you know, yeah, you're Danny Mack. You're telling him like, look, like, you know how to beat this guy. You're better than this guy. You've done it. Like, you know, just go out and run your race, which is going to be putting yourself up in the front anyways. I mean, even if Jakob wasn't in the race or he wasn't going to run hard, like Kerr's, you know, going to be in the front anyways. And he's going to like, you know, probably want it to be a hard race at some point. I mean, he even took it so far out in pre and shows he can win multiple different ways. But yeah, I mean, for anyone in that race, I think you're just like, you know, you're expecting it's going to be a hard race. It's going to be fast. You know, Ingebrigtsen is going to take it at some point, whether it's 200 in or all the way to like maybe 600 in. But I would be surprised that he lets it lag that long, knowing, you know, what his fitness is. He probably thinks as well that Kerr is not in top form like he was. And so not only is like Kerr not in the form, maybe he like, this is what he's thinking, I'm sure, that he maybe, or he's trying to convince himself that he's not in the form he was at pre, but I'm also not in the form I was at pre. So we both went like this. So now like, you know, I can go solo a 327 and, you know, no one in that race has run 327. Kerr was probably the only guy that was capable of doing it. And that's how I'm going to win the race, you know? So.
Wait, so how, you're putting a lot of stock though in thinking that Kerr might be injured or being nice in some injury. How confident are you that this actually happened? Because again, when I told Danny, he didn't really, he kind of downplayed and sort of issue.
I have no insight. I'm saying like, I guess I'm trying to like, if you're like in any of those like athletes positions, you're trying to like build confidence. So I'm saying like, that's what you're telling yourself. Like, you know,
let's say Kerr isn't banged up. Do you think Jakob needs to think he's still his best strategy is still just try to 327 and hope he can't hang on? Like,
of course,
yeah. Or maybe you take it at 300 in or something.
No,
it's
not even convincing that like, it's not even talking about like, oh, Kerr being banged up. Like, I don't even want to like harp on that. Like, Ingebrigtsen's best strategy, whether he's banged up or fresh, is going hard from the gun, because as of right now, there's no one in the field that has a PR of 326 or even 327. Am I correct? No one's even run 327. Like the next fastest is Tim Chariot with 328, right? Like even Kerr's 15 PR. Again, we're just speculating that, yeah, his 345 race is impressive and that he can run 327 as well. But in what we're talking here, like objectively speaking, he's he's the fastest one by 2 seconds. So of course he's going to think that no one else can run 327.
Though I think Yared's 343 mile does convert to a 327.
Oh, true.
Conversion we use.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
All right, let's take a time machine back to 2016. And I don't remember the hype train for the 1500 final quite like this year, but what you'd had an incredible year. You've won in World Indoors. I think you only lost one race all year. But when you're sitting were you in the village the night before? Or were you in a hotel? I'm not sure where. Like,
I was in Airbnb.
Yeah, and who was coaching you then? Was this Sal?
No,
Yeah.
Does he sit down and give you a strategy and tell you what to do? And was it go to the front, control this thing? Like, what was the mindset? And were you really thinking, I'm gonna win this thing, or you thought I'm gonna put myself in the best position? Like, how confident were you? How surprised were you by that win? What was the game set plan going in?
Well, first of all, like I got off social media like days before the Olympics for a lot of reasons. I mean, I would imagine at least a couple guys probably in the final that are going to be like listening to this, right? And like for me, like I just didn't want to hear about any of that, right? Like if I'm racing, like if I'm one of the guys in the race, right? No matter who you are, like, and I'm hearing like Ingebrigtsen's about to go on 327, like I'm shitting my pants. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? Like sure, like it wouldn't surprise you and you probably know it, but you just don't want to you don't want to hear people talking about it. Like, what, as an Olympic finalist, you know what you need to do, right? You need to know how to get in there. For me, like I got off social media because like, I didn't want to see like people either like, oh dude, you got this locked up. You look so good in the semi, or like, talking about other people as well. So I blocked everything out. I was in an Airbnb, and it actually so happened to be great because I was in Airbnb with I think the only athletes at the time was Galen and I in it with like our whole staff. So we had Alberto, we had our assistant coach, Pete Julian, we had Dave McHenry, and then my dad and Tom Nahili and my sister, and I want to say it was just those three, potentially maybe one other person, was an Airbnb literally like 3 houses up. And we're talking like, how big Rio was. Like we had to drive like an hour just to the track stadium. An hour away was where the Olympic Village was. I did the Olympic experience in 2012. I didn't do opening ceremonies in Rio. I didn't want to stay in the village. It gets too loud. It's not like the food wasn't great. So we did everything we possibly could in Rio to get us in the best position possible, like on the starting line. So Alberto, most of my career, like I think because I had run well tactically most of the time, like he never really gave me too many, like we never sat down and had these like in-depth, long conversations about strategy. It was like one of those things like, what you need to do, go out and do it. And I did. Alberto was 100% my coach, like gave me the workouts from, the day I wore the Oregon Project singlet to the day I stopped wearing it. But my dad was a great person for my head. More than we had a sports psych on our staff that I never really utilized. I felt like, going into my professional career, like I felt like I had, been more sound mentally than physically. And so I liked going to my dad for my head. I think there's like a famous quote with Prefontaine where they were like, who's your coach? Is it Bill Bowerman or is it Bill Dillinger? And he's like, I go to Bowerman for my workouts and I go to Dillinger to get my head screwed on. It was like something like that. And and I felt the same way, like, it's nothing like, it's not even like Alberto couldn't screw my head on. He definitely could. He kicked me in the ass, or he got my butt in gear many, many times throughout my career. But like my dad's just my dad, he knows me, better than anyone else. He knows when like I'm sounding like, like you're on, and I get confidence from that. I also got confidence from Tommy Nahili, who would stretch me out. He was learned from the Whartons, and Tommy's known me since I was a little kid. And so having these people like in my corner, like I got a lot of confidence just from them in terms of like, you can do this. Like, there's only so many times where you're like, you have everything going for you, the fitness, and then just how sharp I was like. And so I kind of went into that race for sure, just like not expecting anything. And I think a lot of the reason, and I think I told this to you guys, or I said this, I don't know, I told this to someone recently, but one reason I think why Rio was so slow anyways was because the delay in the soccer game with the Brazil soccer team was playing, and they went into extra or stoppage time or extra time, whatever it was, whatever you call it. And basically we had to be held because we're the first final that night. And so I think a lot of people, we were held in the paddock area and we couldn't like warm up properly. Like we couldn't do last second strides. And we were held there for like 10 minutes, which was like not ideal going into, a race, obviously, after already being warmed up. So anyways, I think like, you're just at this point, like the work's put in, you're just trying to do things to get your head in the right place, which is for me getting off social media. I didn't want to cloud my mind with like, hearing people's opinions or like even like positive, like, people like, dude, you got this. Like, you know what I mean? Like I wanted to like understand like this is going to be like a hard, challenge. And like, this wasn't going to be easy no matter like how easy people thought I looked or how like confident people were in me. And then the other way, of course, I didn't want to hear the negativity as well. Um, so yeah, that's kind of like the Rio, like,
Wait,
situation.
did you plan to lead it from the front, or that just happened?
No,
You're
I mean, I was going to
confident?
get out. I was going to get out really hard, like I always like to do. And I found myself in the lead, but there was no plan of that for sure. I do think though, like like I said, we were held for like 10 minutes. And then when they like released us, we literally did one stride, like on the curve to the straightaway. And they're already there, like holding their arms out, like stopping us. And we like got on the line and then they did the introductions right away. So like, it was almost like to the point where I was like kind of feeling like no one's going to want to go run 56 off of like literally, standing around for 10 minutes. So,
All right. And looking at Paris, we talked about Hocker. We talked a little bit about Nuguse. The third American in the final, Hobbs Kessler, 21 years old, first global championship. To me, I think he's looked very impressive these two prelims. He doesn't seem to have made any dumb mistakes. He's been in pretty good position. And now he's into his first global final outdoors. He was bronze medalist indoors. What have you seen from him, and what do you expect from him in the final? Because I was talking to him, and I'm like, hey, if it's a 3:28 race or something, are you going to go with that pace and try to run for gold, or will you just snipe a medal? He's like, I'm going to go with that pace. I think it can run 3:28. So what do you think?
I mean, I love the, to be young again and naive, right? And it work. It's going to work for him. And I think like, why shouldn't he think otherwise? He ran 143 twice at the trials. He put together an unbelievable Olympic trials week, 6 races. You could just see his confidence grow with each round from the 15 to the 800 final. And, I was a little like, I was hanging out with Ronnie Warhurst the whole week, like at the trials. And obviously like in my head, I never said anything, but in my head, I was like, man, that's like, you're kind of rolling the dice a little bit running the 8. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sure, like he might qualify, but also like it takes so much out of you emotionally. I was like, I don't know if he's going to race after, like, what if he gets hurt, all these things. But I mean, I'm eating my words because that ended up being the best thing for him possible. I think, he's coming into this. I think he's coming into these championships, like super confident that like, not only he could medal, I'm sure like in the back of his head, he's like, I can win on a like great day. And so I think all the Americans are thinking that, right? And so my take is, and Hobbs, I've hung around Hobbs quite a bit, like, this last year, obviously, like I'm a huge fan of all 3 of these Americans. I would just say the one thing with Hobbs is, I just think he's just like maybe 4 years early. I think I think maybe he comes back in 2028, which would be even better, like having the Olympics and at home and being a little bit more of a medal contender there. But my only thing with him is just, I mean, he medaled indoors. He's got a bit of experience, but I just think he's just not quite there, maybe maturity wise. Look, it's like almost Cole of like 2021, right? Like Cole's like, I didn't even break 13. I didn't have the strength for it. I think like Hobbs has unbelievable speed and he's like very confident right now. And I think like if he does medal, it's because he's really, really naive, which is a huge advantage and a great place to be in. And it only lasts X amount of years. Cause if he comes away with the medal, he's not going to be that naive from this point on. Like enjoy it while it lasts. And so that's my only knock on him would be that he's just, he's just a bit young and he's just like not as strong to like come back after a 331 and, run 328 because he hasn't run 328 yet, So that'd be my only knock on Hobbs. My knock on Nuguse would just be like, he hasn't demonstrated tactics all that well in the past like few championships. So I would say like, with Nuguse, even when he ran his 343, he didn't even medal that year, so like convince me why he should medal this year when he hasn't even run as fast, that he did in 2023. And then I think Cole's probably the best American medal contender right now. So that'd be my take for the 3. And that's what I would say for Hobbs. I think Hobbs has done, there's nothing that Hobbs has done for me to like doubt why he can't medal. I'm just going off of that. I think there's just 3+ more people that are just stronger and fitter than him right now. He's done a great job tactically.
And Yard seems like a step slower than last year. Or was that your assessment of him? And maybe he doesn't have the kick needed. What do you think about Yard?
My thing about Yard is like, last year he won US. He didn't win the US championships this year. He did run 3:43 2 weeks after Budapest. So it's like, do we think Yard's in that type of shape? And like, I don't know. Like, it's hard to say. Like, better than 3:43. Like, you're talking world record shape here. Like Ingebrigtsen is in better shape, it seems like, than he was last year. And I don't know. Like, again, like if Ingebrigtsen was in better shape last year and he beat him, then convince me again why Yard should be come out of this victorious or better than what did he finish in Budapest? Fifth, sixth?
Yard fifth.
So he finished fifth last year and he ran 3:43 and he won USAs. I'm just saying, like, the competition has gotten better. It's not even like Yard's gotten worse, but like, Yard won the US championships and looked really good, and Cole's just gotten better. Kerr is, obviously gotten better a bit. He ran 3:45 in the mile and 8 flats. So it's more just like, and that's why I feel bad, because it's not even like, it's nothing that Hobbs or Yard is doing that's like, Yard just sold a 3:31 for crying out loud. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I just think that there's 3 guys that have shown to be better championship racers like in the last couple of years than him. That's what it comes down to.
If you just join us, a special live edition of the Let's Run Track Talk podcast. If you want to get this as a podcast, go to letsrun.com/subscribe to join the supporters club. We're joined by Matthew Centrowitz, 2016 Olympic gold medalist. Matthew, we'll get you out of here with one question. I mean, we were wondering how many American, middle distance and distance medals we would get at these championships. And, I did my odds and I didn't have anyone with a greater than 50% chance odds, but the guy that was number 1 was Grant Fisher, and he's already gotten the job done. And he credits you a lot. He said, "Oh, my training partner, Matthew Centrowitz, has been helping me." So how excited were you for him? A, and B, how much training did you do with him this year?
Dude, I was really stoked for Grant. I got to be pretty tight and good friends with his coach, Mike, who's come out here almost every week for workouts of Grant's. And so, we've done like we do a weekly trivia meet up on Tuesday nights, and usually that's after double threshold for him. And so like Mike will still be in town, so we'll all hang out and get together here in Park City. And so anyways, I sent Mike a really nice text. He sent me even a nicer text back. I was super, it's, even though we, don't have a club here in Park City, it felt like we're teammates. Obviously we had the history at BTC together. He was at first year in 2019. I remember he came out to Park City, and it's been great. Like, just watching his progression. Like, he was like a wide-eyed college kid, came out, and his first workout at altitude was like 8x200 and like 31 with like 200 jog, and everyone of course was like laughing, like, and he's just had a really nice progression. He's obviously put the work in, and we did probably, it's hard to say exactly how much training him and I did, but we definitely linked up quite often. I would probably say he would have a Tuesday morning workout that I would always do, and I would just be my strength day. We do 3x2 miles. So I would always join him for that. And that, when I say always, like maybe like 75% of the time after the at end of the year. And then there are some like specific workouts where we'd either warm up together and he would do a workout and I would do a separate workout. So we linked up quite a bit, and then a lot of easy runs together and quite a bit of long runs together as well. So yeah, I would say I trained with him at least 50% of the time. But I was pumped for Grant. I mean, I was teammates with Galen, like sort of in 2012, because I was still being coached by Andy Powell that year, and I wasn't really in Portland a lot. But I mean, winning a 10K medal at any world championships or Olympics is like, I mean, you see how many guys, the Americans have had in the past, and women, it's a really hard medal to win. And so, I mean, just watching that race, and I told him at the last run I did with him, I was just like, it's one of those things where, like, he's had such a good buildup. He didn't have any niggles, all season. We all saw his races. He's mentally sound. Everything was going right. And I was just like, dude, when you have a perfect storm like that, man, like, take advantage. And I felt like, truthfully, I thought like he had a better chance at medaling in the 5. I mean, he had a really good shot at medaling in 10. There's no doubt about that. I would have guessed, though, and again, this is just being completely transparent, if we were talking before the 10, I would have given him better odds in the 5 over the 10. I just thought the 10 was like, the 10 is really hard. Look how many Americans have done it, right? I mean, he definitely was a medal contender, but I just would have guessed that if he's walking away with one medal, it would have been from the 5. So I'm really excited to see how he does in the 5. I think that bodes really, really well for him. It's almost like, now he's got this medal, like, he's kind of going into it, nothing to lose. Obviously, he's going to put a lot of pressure on himself still, but it's nice to take a deep breath and not feel like you've come up short so many times that now he's kind of running a little bit like, he's running a little bit more freely, I think, or I would like to think. So
I know I asked myself a good question here because I'm a trivia nerd. How is the trivia responsibilities break down between you, Grant, and Mike Stanell? Who's carrying the team? What are your strong categories? Is anyone just along for the ride?
We started rolling a bit. We won like 3 weeks in a row. We had these like high school kids near us, like accusing us of cheating, being on our phones because we were just like, we were that dominant. So funny enough, so Grant's an engineer. I believe Mike is an engineer, and Grant's girlfriend's an engineer. So we had 3 engineers on our team. So like any math related numbers, things that we crushed. We actually had we had some funny ones. Like we missed last week's, which was Olympics, because it's obviously themed. And so I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I think my wife and I went to our first rodeo here in Utah. And we missed that one, and I was like, that was a bad one to miss. But we do pretty well. And so I guess I get like movies and like weird shit, like 90s and like, maybe like some music type of stuff too. The astronomy and astrology is not really our strong suit, but somehow we kind of like get by. We just try to like get half right so we can dominate the other categories that we're good at. So, but Grant's really strong. I would say I'm definitely a weak link. I'm more like, definitely on the things that like, when we're conflicted and we like make a vote, usually I'm really good at picking which one is the right one. Cause like, especially if it's like multiple choice. So that's what I bring to the table.
Well, that's good. Well, if you ever have like a championship night, we can fly John out there. I saw him smiling when you mentioned trivia. He was like, "Yeah, at Christmas."
I mean, I would love to do a running trivia with him, because I know obviously his running trivia is really good. I feel like mine's pretty strong.
Yours is, he's always strong.
Your dad.
All right, so we'll have you back on in 2025. I always do running trivia for these guys at the start of the year.
Let's go mano. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, he does it down for us. It's for about a 7-year-old level. But your guys will bump it up.
All right, we'll let you out of here with this. Danny Mackey, for some reason, I guess he could have made it up and lied about it, but he told John the last hard workout that Kerr did before Rio, I think it was about 2 weeks before Paris. It was 2 weeks out. I think it was 8 by 400, 90 seconds rest.
Averaging 54.
Well, so he did a similar one before Budapest last year. So how does that compare?
It's basically identical. Danny said he ran this one faster, but I looked at what he told me before, right after Budapest, and he said it was the same split. So I don't know if he reduced the rest or anything, but he thought this workout was better than the one before Budapest.
Well, that's good. I'll say this, man. That's, as a coach, that's a risky thing to do, to try to like duplicate a workout, because it can go one or two ways, right? Like if that workout, like even if it was just like the same exact workout as last year by same tense, we know Ingebrigtsen got faster, ran 326. So like now you have to convince yourself. So anyways, props to Danny for doing it. I'm glad it worked out well, but man, you wouldn't catch me try to like duplicate a same, like we can tinker it around a little bit, but if it was the same splits, or sorry, the same rest, the same amount of intervals, that's ballsy, man. That's ballsy. So I'm glad it went well, but because I mean, we all want to see a good. I want to see a great race. You know what I mean? I want to see all the Americans, and then those two just like 150, 200 to go, all in it, like running something stupid. I mean, American record for the 15 is Nuguse at 329 flat. Like,
yeah, I guess depending on whether you count the 327 Legat ran in 05, which USATF does, but other people don't. So
yeah. I mean, yeah. Dare I say an American could run 328 tomorrow or whenever in 2 days? Like, wait, hold on though. What about you guys then? What do you have then for middle distance, male and female, 800 up to the marathon medals? Like, what are you guys thinking right now? Like,
wasn't our number 2 odds Mia Akins, who just got eliminated in the 800? So
yeah, I thought
Gemma was going to medal and she got eliminated too. I was like, oh,
yeah. I think we won.
But hold on. Shout out to Juliette though. Love
yeah,
Juliette,
girls, right?
Juliette fan. Yep. I mean, that girl is an absolute gamer in a sense that she just continues to like pull out you know, PBs and like better races like as she continues to like progress through the season. It might be kind of crazy like throwing her in the medal contention, but like she's already amazed me to the point where like could she run another PB and run 157 flat and then like, you know what I mean? Like she's just so good. Like she's just like clutch, you know what I mean? She's just so good. She's gritty. She's obviously she's confident. She goes into these races fearless.
I do think it's tough for her though. She just ran 157 this big PB, and then they don't have a day between the final. The finals.
Oh,
tomorrow.
that's right.
I mean, I think for a 20-year-old to bounce back and do that is going to be very tough. But I mean, she ran a hell of a race today. Again, she was fifth at the home straight and runs it down in third place. So I was so impressed by how she ran.
We're gonna need a separate podcast for me to go on about venting. I spent like maybe an hour and a half yesterday venting my wife about this whole new gulag structure, and I don't get. I get it. I don't get it though. I don't get it. Like I don't get it in a sense like, and this is my one quick example, and then I'm gonna be off of it. Clean Murphy in 2016 got a small Q and then ended up medaling, right? If they had what they have in place now, where he would have to race the following day while his competition, I don't think he medals that year. And so the thing is where like, if they're trying to think like this is giving more athletes an opportunity, it's like the athletes that have to have another race under athletes that already beat them, how's that giving them any better chance? It's like just increase the big Qs and leave it to no small Qs, but having people that barely make it in to have another race, especially at 1500 meters. I mean, it's like such a huge advantage. Like we got Kerr and Ingebrigtsen having their feet up while guys are running 3:32, and then we're gonna expect them to come back the next day and like somehow like take it to them or like compete with them. Like, no, there's no shot. It just doesn't make sense. Anyways, that's
I love that you pulled the repechage around the gulag. You dragged to the gulag if you don't advance.
They
great.
Yeah, none of them made it. They were terrible.
Well, no, this Cal Identity has the stats here. So the 1500, the repechage qualifiers in the semis tonight, they were 8th, 10th, 12th, 9th, 11th, and 11th. So I think you're right.
And I had a lot of friends that had people racing. Shout out to Gav, his athlete, Abby Caldwell, ran unbelievable. I mean, she was just short of it. She ran a 158.5 after having 3 races. This would have been her 3rd race in a row. Would she have actually made the semi? Probably had a better chance if she actually didn't have to run another race yesterday. She probably would have been in the got a small Q. So it's just it's I don't know, man. We'll save that for another podcast. But yeah,
I mean, in 2021, he got out of the first round in time, so he probably wouldn't have it with a medal.
I will gladly send whoever, like Sebco, whoever I need to send, or come up with a public statement when someone coming out of the gulag wins a medal. I will gladly admit defeat. Maybe we should even do it when someone makes a final first, because it's just like, and I was hesitant to even make a post about this because I don't want it to come off like, one, I'm not trying to like count out like all these other athletes that are trying to have another shot at it, or I'm not trying to like downplay these athletes also. It's just like, you know, a lot of these athletes, like I think Ollie, like when I was listening to the broadcast or something, like Ollie had a take where he was like, this is dumb. And I felt like, you know, I agree with him. Like, I think it's like a lot of these athletes that would have already made it into the gulag anyways, would have made it into the final. They wouldn't have to race another race, you know? And so it's like,
we're going to call it gulag from here on out. There's a British journalist, Matthew. He was in the mix zone all day yesterday. He'd been told that he could get athletes to sort of like talk about the repechage. I can't even say it. The gulag round.
It's easier.
Yeah, and like if they would talk about it, like there might be a story there. Nobody would sort of trash it. I'm gonna put him in touch with you. Like he might, and he'll brand it the gulag. Like this will be great.
Why do you think they were hesitant to trash it? Like
because they got a second chance. I think they're all like, well, I had a chance today. Like,
but there was a good portion of those guys that would have had a second chance anyways without having to race.
He was trying to get. He was talking to one. He's like, but you would have had a small queue. And they're like, oh, okay.
Well, for the record here, though, Sebco, I don't think is a fan of it. He said at a media call at the end of last year, he was asked, you know, is this going to be in the World Championships? It's not going to be in the World Championships. And it's because it was essentially forced on them by the IOC. The IOC wanted Olympians, I think, to race more than once, have their Olympic experience be more than just a 20 or 30-second race.
Listen,
Hence the repechage round.
Maybe it's a money grab. They're packing 75,000 fans into this thing. Tomorrow, it's essentially all gulag, and I think.
But are they
we're
attacking 75,000?
skipping.
Sorry, say
They're
that
not
again.
talking 75,000 for the gulag, but also like I hate to sound cutthroat too, but it's like, listen, you don't make the next round. You don't make the next round. I'm sorry, that's the end of it. Congratulations, you're an Olympian. On you go. Like, you know, when they announce it, I love I can speak freely because I'm not an athlete anymore and I don't have to worry about any backlash. But it's like, and it's not even like downplaying it, but that's the reality of sport. It's not like we're not racing for 42nd place here. You know what I mean? It's like, look, like, you know, we talk about how we can make track more popular, right? And one thing people talk about is shaving events and like thinning the TV window, thinning the window here. Now I have to go explain to some people when I'm sitting around at the Olympics in 2028 of being like, well, actually, so these people didn't qualify, but now they get another chance. And actually, it's only 2 people. And it's like, wait, they got to come back tomorrow. And I don't even know how many people qualify. I don't even know how it works. Like, there's so much confusion because it's the first year. And it's like, why are we trialing this at the Olympic Games? You know what I mean? But it makes sense.
I'm going to defend him a little bit here because John has always hated the mixed relay. Meanwhile, what have I been watching? I just got here today. What have I been watching at home with my wife and my 6-year-old son?
Mixed relay.
They love the relay and the mixed relay. I could, but I was like you. I could not explain to her, oh, this is kind of our B team because our A teamers don't bother to run it. The Festival bothers to run it. And then I was at the airport. I got delayed and was at the United Lounge for like 6 hours talking to these 2 salesmen going to Portugal for tech sales. And I'm like, what are you guys been watching? Like, oh, that mixed relay was amazing. So maybe I should raise the white flag.
Yeah, but the mixed relay is a final. No one's going to be, nobody in 4 years, you're not going to be in the airport and going to be like, did you catch that gulag? Oh, round 2 was a barn burner. Just for these guys to go get absolutely annihilated the next day from guys who beat them the previous day that rested. Like, it just, like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
If we didn't have the gulag, we wouldn't have seen Freddie Crittenden running 18 seconds over that 110 hurdles this morning. And also the hurdles had the gulag and they had 3-time qualifiers. I was like,
wait, what? They time
qualified today? Repechage. Yeah. What? Yes. There are 3-time qualifiers. Everyone else goes to repechage.
There were in the 8 as well. There were in the I don't think it was in the 15, but they had some time qualifiers in the 8, the women's 8 from the gulag.
So crazy.
This is amazing. The gulags.
I'm telling you, man. Anyways,
it's forever the Matthew Centrowitz term. They're now ending the world starting next year with the 4x1. We're calling that the Weldon Johnson rule because he proposed that. He's like, you should end with a 4x1. It's more exciting than 4x4. So that's good. So we're slowly making the sport. All right, Matthew. Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
Of course.
Wait, final prediction. Have we made you change or like you just gonna wait for the race tomorrow? Like, you don't want to pick one.
I'll make my prediction like final. But I was just gonna say like it's even without the Kerr, whatever. If he had a little niggle or something, whatever he pulled out of a race, it's like he still didn't look as good as the other guys. So all right, here's my final predictions. Instead of I'm gonna go my 1, 2, 3 is definitely gonna be Ingebrigtsen. It's gonna be 1, 2, 3 from that first heat. That's gonna be and I'm gonna go with Ingebrigtsen getting second again. And I don't know if I want to put Hocker in there or Kerr. Like I want to be bold right now and put Hocker in there because if I go with Kerr, then it's like, I just feel like that's like kind of that's such a easy take. I mean, I want to see the stat. Maybe Jonathan knows this one. When's the last time we've had a back-to-back like chip? So we haven't Chariot won in 19. Obviously, Ingebrigtsen won the Olympics, and then it's been a new. So we haven't had a back-to-back. So like that makes me want to not put Kerr in there. You know what I mean? We haven't had a back-to-back in a while. 15.
Hip would be the last one.
So
15.
It's been a lot of years. So I'm not going to put Kerr there then. All right. I might. Oh, man. All right. No, because Ingebrigtsen's going to run 3:27. All right. I'm going to go Ingebrigtsen. I'm going to go Hocker, and then I'm going to go Kerr. That's my 1, 2, 3. If it was 3:29, I'd go Cole Hocker, but I don't think it's going to be 3:29.
Well, it's good. Okay. It's like I've been eating humble pie for the first 20 minutes before you on here because I said no love and never went Olympic gold.
Wait,
but after 2021. I said right after 2021. Well, he looked terrible.
Who do you guys have
for this?
For the 50 minutes?
There was a comment. Someone's like, maybe in the sports camera that hired us to do odds for him. He's like, I don't bet the 1500 because he likes the event too much. I
Sure.
think Kerr's going to win, but I want Ingebrigtsen.
Well, okay.
I had Ingebrigtsen, Hocker in that order in my preview. I'm going to stick with it. But I do think any of those three can win. The first two guys, I think, have a better shot. But like you, if it's a 3:29 race, I think Hocker can kick off that pace. So I think
For sure.
that could be well then.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I really go with Hocker. Like, there's
Dude, if you look, there's no downside.
I mean, Hocker looks like a
the goal.
genius.
You look like
And he never run 3:27.
I
And
know
also,
that-
like, people know it, and some guys in the chat like laughing about the 2021 trials race because, like, at the time, we're like, wow, he beat Matthew, but now this guy's really effing good. I'm gonna go with Ingebrigtsen.
Yeah.
I can't until you've done it. It's hard to predict, but
I'm slowly going I'm switching up to Ingebrigtsen only because of me just thinking of that stat of like when the last time someone's done back to back. And then I'm also factoring in he looked a little bit better and that he also just ran through 26 and that like of course like I had that little like niggle in the back of my head still. So I'm putting all of that. That's gonna it's such a toss up with those two, right? And it's like all it takes is just one little thing that I need to hear for me to go with the other person. So that's why I'm going with Ingebrigtsen, but I just want to let it know that I had Kerr and I thought Kerr strongly before these Olympic Games.
Well, Kerr running his last 800 and 148 in the first round. That looks like a guy who's been dealing with a niggle. He looked fantastic.
Kerr did?
Yeah, Kerr did. First round.
I think Kerr's that good. I think Kerr's that good that like Kerr could have missed, what are we talking about here? Like a week of training, right? Like he could have cross trained for a week and he could still have done that. Kerr's that good. Like he's just better than everyone.
Last prediction.
yeah, round one. I forgot about that.
How will they handle the loss? Like, who will handle it better, Kerr or Ingebrigtsen? Well, I mean, will they hug each other? Will they ignore
I
each
think
other?
Kerr would handle it better. I don't see Ingebrigtsen handle it. I think okay, whoever wins out of those two, they're not going over to each other and shaking hands. Will they like maybe joke on I can't remember last year's podium. Like I didn't watch it, like when they did the medal ceremony, but like, will they even like look and speak to each other? Will like one even put their arm on the other guy's shoulder? I mean, the winner's going to be more open to doing it, but would like
Last year, I think actually this was before the whole thing, popped off because Ingebrigtsen hadn't said his just the next guy comment. That was given after the 5K final. And remember, there was that schism between Jakob and his dad, and Nordas was the other podium guy. So I think Kerr and Ingebrigtsen, they were talking to each other, and Ingebrigtsen wasn't talking to Nordas at all because there was definitely a frosty relationship there. So now it's kind of like Ingebrigtsen has frosty relationships with both of them, I'd say.
Yeah, and then Nordas made that comment recently too, so that'd be a fun podium again.
It will be very interesting press conference for the medalists.
The real race starts at the award ceremony.
Yeah, we'll keep listening because when we kick you off right now, I got some clarification on the Nordas comment, so that's coming up next. All right, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you have it, folks. Olympic champion Matthew Centrowitz. How great was that? Amazing insights.